I need to tell you what happened after I sent that email. I need someone to know the full truth, because I survived. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but I survived that night at the ranch, and what I learned changes everything. My name is Marcus, and this is the rest of the story. I drove west out of Dallas as the sun was setting, the box from my grandfather sitting on the passenger seat. Inside were the journal, the photographs, and something else I hadn't noticed before. A small velvet pouch, tied with a leather cord. I'd been so focused on the journal and the letter that I'd overlooked it. Now, as the city lights faded in my rearview mirror, and the endless dark of West Texas opened up ahead of me, I reached into the box and pulled it out. The pouch was old, the velvet worn smooth in places, stained with what looked like old oil, or maybe something else. I untied the cord and tipped the contents into my palm. A key. Not a modern key, but an old iron one, hand-forged, black with age. It was large, maybe 4 inches long, with a complex pattern of teeth that looked more like something from a medieval castle than a ranch house. I turned it over in my hand, feeling the weight of it, the coldness of the metal. It felt wrong. It felt like it didn't want to be touched. I put it back in the pouch and tucked it into my pocket. I didn't know what it was for, but I had a feeling I'd find out soon enough. The drive took 4 hours. 4 hours of flat, empty roads, of occasional small towns that were already closed for the night, of darkness so complete that my headlights seemed to barely scratch the surface. I passed the turnoff to La Mesa and kept going, deeper into the country, down roads I hadn't traveled since I was 16. The gravel drive to the ranch appeared on my right, barely visible in the gloom. I turned in, the truck bouncing over the rutted track, mesquite branches scraping against the sides. The house was dark, as expected. But the barn, the old barn where I'd picked up the box, had a light on inside. A faint, flickering light, like a candle or a lantern. I parked next to the house and sat there for a long moment, engine running, staring at that light. No one was supposed to be here. The ranch was empty. My grandfather was dead. So who was in the barn? I turned off the engine and the silence rushed in. Absolute, complete silence. Not even the wind. I checked my watch. 11:47. I had just over 3 hours until the Stillborn hour. 3 hours to prepare, to explore, to figure out what I was going to do. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment, tucked the velvet pouch with the key into my jacket pocket, and got out of the truck. The air was cold, much colder than in Dallas. It had that dry, penetrating quality that West Texas gets at night, a cold that seeps into your bones and stays there. My breath misted in front of my face as I walked toward the barn. The light inside flickered and danced, casting strange shadows through the gaps in the old wooden walls. I reached the door, a massive sliding thing on a rusted track, and I pulled. It groaned in protest, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence, and I slipped inside. The barn was exactly as I remembered it. Hay bales stacked against one wall, old equipment rusting in the corners, the smell of dust and aged wood and something else, something sweet and decayed. The light was coming from a lantern sitting on an overturned barrel near the back. And next to the lantern, sitting on a wooden crate, was a man. He was old, older than my grandfather had been, with skin like crumpled paper and eyes that were milky with cataracts. He wore dirty overalls and a worn flannel shirt, and he was staring directly at me, though I wasn't sure he could see me through those clouded eyes. I said, "Who are you?" He smiled, a thin, lipless smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said, "I've been waiting for you, Marcus." Your grandfather said you'd come? I took a step closer, my flashlight trained on him. He didn't flinch. He said, "My name is Ezra. Same as your grandfather. I'm his brother. Your great-uncle. The one who didn't disappear." I stopped. I stared at him. My grandfather had never mentioned a brother. The journal had mentioned Samuel, the one who followed the song and vanished. But not this man. Not another brother. He laughed, a dry rattling sound. He said, surprised? "Your family's good at secrets. Good at hiding the things that need hiding. I'm the oldest, Marcus. Older than Samuel. Older than your grandfather. I was born in 1915, 3 years before your great-grandmother had the stillborn. I was 4 years old when it happened. 4 years old when my mother became something else. And I remember everything." He stood up, slowly, painfully, his joints cracking in the silence. He said, "Your grandfather sent me a letter before he died. Told me you'd be coming. Told me what he did, what he set in motion. He was a fool, your grandfather. A good man, but a fool. He thought he could protect you by staying silent. He thought if he didn't tell you the truth, the song would leave you alone. But the song doesn't care about truth. It only cares about blood. And you have our blood, Marcus. Thicker than water, thicker than lies." I asked him, "What is the song? What really happened in 1918? He motioned for me to sit. I hesitated, then lowered myself onto a hay bale. He sat back down on his crate, the lantern between us casting long, dancing shadows across his face. He said, "I'll tell you what I remember. What I saw with my own 4-year-old eyes. And then you'll understand why I've lived out here alone for 90 years, never marrying, never having children, never giving the song another voice to claim." He told me about that night in January 1918. The blizzard howling outside, the cold seeping through every crack in the shack. His mother, Eliza, screaming in labor. His father, my great-grandfather, frantic, desperate, doing things he'd never done before. He and Samuel, his younger brother, huddled in the corner, watching, terrified. And then the silence. The baby came out blue, silent still. And his mother, Eliza, held that baby and she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just held it, and stared at it, and went quiet. Too quiet. My great-uncle said, "I remember the change. It wasn't gradual. It was instant. One moment she was my mother, the next moment she was something else wearing my mother's skin. She looked up from that baby and she looked directly at me. Not at Samuel. At me. And she smiled. And she said, in a voice that wasn't her voice, "You'll do. You'll do nicely." He said he didn't understand then. He was 4. But he felt it. A pull, a tug at his chest, like a hook trying to catch a fish. Something in him wanted to go to her. Something in him wanted to be with that thing that looked like his mother. But his father grabbed him and Samuel and dragged them into the root cellar and barred the door. They stayed there for 3 days, eating canned vegetables and drinking melted snow, while above them, something walked through the shack, singing that lullaby. When they came out, the shack was empty. His mother was gone. The baby was gone. But the song wasn't gone. It came back every night at the stillborn hour, floating in from the darkness beyond the yard. And his father, my great-grandfather, stood on the porch every night, listening, resisting, teaching his sons to do the same. But Samuel was young, curious, reckless. He didn't believe the danger was real. He thought it was just a story, just grief making his father paranoid. And one night, when he was 17, he walked out into the darkness to prove it was nothing. He never came back. My great-uncle said I watched him go. I was 15. I could have stopped him. I should have stopped him. But I was afraid. Afraid that if I went after him, I'd be taken too. So I let him go. And I've carried that guilt every day for 90 years. I asked him, why didn't the song take you? You said it looked at you that night, said you'd do. Why are you still here? He looked at me with those milky eyes and said, because I made a choice. I chose to be empty. I chose to feel nothing, want nothing, love nothing. The song feeds on longing, Marcus. On grief, on desire, on the things that make us human. It can't take what isn't there. So I emptied myself out. I lived alone. I never loved. I never let myself want anything. And the song passed me by. It took Samuel because he was full of life, full of curiosity, full of wanting. It took your grandfather's voice in the end because he loved you, because he wanted to protect you, because that wanting gave the song a hook into him. But me? I'm a hollow shell. There's nothing left for it to take. I stared at him, this ancient, hollow man, and I felt a profound sadness. 90 years of emptiness. 90 years of isolation. All to escape a fate worse than death. Was that the only way? Was that the choice I faced? Empty myself out, become nothing, or be taken by the song and join that eternal choir? He said, you're wondering if that's your only option? It's not. There's another way. But it's dangerous. It might kill you. It might make things worse. But if you're brave enough, if you're desperate enough, you can try to close the door for good. I leaned forward. Tell me. He reached into his overalls and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, reverently, and held it out to me. It was a photograph. Old, faded, barely visible in the lantern light. It showed a woman, young and beautiful, standing in front of the original shack. She was holding a baby, and she was smiling. But the smile was wrong. It was too wide, too knowing. And behind her, in the background, barely visible, was a shape. A dark shape, like a shadow-given form, standing at the edge of the woods. He said, that's your great-grandmother Eliza? And that thing behind her, that's what came through when the Stillborn died. It's been here ever since, waiting, building its choir, gathering strength. Your great-grandfather's journal mentions it, but he never understood what it really was. I've spent 90 years trying to understand. I've talked to people, studied old texts, learned things that would curl your hair. And I think I know what it is now. It's a gatherer. A collector of souls. It exists in the spaces between worlds, in the stillborn hour when the veil is thin. It can't cross over on its own. It needs an invitation, a crack in the door. Your great-grandmother's grief, her desperate longing for her dead baby, that was the invitation. That was the crack. And it slipped through. But it's still not fully here. It's half in, half out. That's why it needs voices. Every voice it gathers, every soul it takes, pulls it further into our world. When the choir is complete, when it has enough voices, it will be able to cross over completely. And then God help us all. I asked, how many voices does it need? He said, I don't know. But it's been gathering for 100 years. It has your great-grandmother's voice. It has your great-uncle Samuel's voice. It has your grandfather's voice now. And others. People from town over the years, drifters, lost souls who wandered too close at the wrong hour. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. But it wants our bloodline most of all. Because we're the ones who open the door. We're the keys. Every one of us that joins the song turns another lock. I thought about my father, back in Dallas, hearing the song too. I thought about my cousins, my aunts and uncles, all of them carrying that blood, that curse. I said, how do we stop it? He said, the key? The one in your pocket. Do you have it? I reached into my jacket and pulled out the velvet pouch. He nodded, his milky eyes fixed on it. He said, your great-grandfather had that key made. He found an old craftsman, a man who understood things, who knew about the old ways. He had him forge it from iron mined from a meteorite that fell near here a century before. Iron from the sky, blessed and cursed in equal measure. The key is the only thing that can lock the door for good. But you have to use it at the source. You have to go to where the door is. I asked, where is that? He said, the well. The old well behind the shack. The one your great-grandfather dug when he first homesteaded this land. He dug it in 1912, and he dug deep. Deeper than he should have. He hid something down there, something old, something that had been sleeping. He didn't know it then. None of us knew. But that well is the doorway. That's where it came through. That's where it's been waiting. And that's where you have to go. I looked at my watch. 1:37. Less than 2 hours until the Stillborn hour. I said, you want me to go down into the well? He said, I want you to go down into the well, find the door, and lock it. Use the key. Turn it in the lock. And if you hear singing, if you hear them calling, don't listen. Don't answer. Just turn the key and get out. I asked, what about you? Aren't you coming? He smiled that thin, lipless smile again. He said, I'm 95 years old, Marcus. I've been empty for 9 decades. I can't help you. But I can do something else. I can stand on the porch and be a distraction. I can let the song know I'm here, let it think it finally has a chance to take me. It'll focus on me, on the one that got away all those years ago. That might give you enough time. I started to protest, but he held up a hand. He said, it's my time. It's always been my time. I should have gone with Samuel that night. I should have tried to save him. Instead, I hid. I've been hiding ever since. Let me do this. Let me be useful for once. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. He stood up, groaning with the effort, and he said, let's go. It's time. We walked out of the barn together, into the absolute darkness. The house loomed ahead of us, dark and silent. Beyond it, I could barely make out the shape of the original shack, the one my great-grandfather had built, still standing after all these years. And beyond that, the well. He said, I'll go to the porch. You go to the well. And Marcus, whatever you hear, whatever you see, don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep going. The key will know what to do. He walked toward the house, his old legs carrying him slowly but steadily. I watched him for a moment, then turned and walked toward the shack. The ground was rough, uneven, covered in dry grass and cactus. I picked my way carefully, my flashlight cutting a narrow path through the darkness. The shack loomed ahead, its windows dark, its door hanging slightly open. I walked past it, my skin crawling, feeling like something was watching me from those empty windows. Behind me, I heard my great-uncle's voice, thin and reedy, calling out into the night. He said, I'm here. I'm here, you old bitch. Come and get me if you can. I kept walking. The well appeared ahead, a circle of darker darkness against the ground. It was old, made of stacked stones, with a wooden frame and a rusted crank for the bucket. I approached it slowly, my heart pounding, and shone my flashlight down into the hole. The light didn't reach the bottom. Just blackness, endless blackness. I checked my watch. 2:48. 12 minutes until the Stillborn hour. I had to go now. I slung my flashlight over my shoulder on its strap, grabbed the rope that was still attached to the crank, and tested it. It seemed solid. I swung my legs over the edge and started to lower myself down. The well was narrow, barely wider than my shoulders. The stones were cold and slimy against my hands. I descended slowly, carefully, my feet searching for holds on the uneven surface. The air grew colder as I went down, and the smell changed. At first, it was just a musty smell of old stone and stagnant water. But as I went deeper, another smell joined it. Something sweet and decayed, like flowers left too long in a vase. Like funeral homes. Like death dressed up to look pretty. I looked up. The circle of sky above me was small, distant, filled with stars. I looked down. Still nothing but blackness. I kept going. And then I heard it. The singing. It started faintly, far away, but it grew quickly, swelling to fill the narrow space of the well. It was the same lullaby I'd heard in my dreams, but now it was richer, fuller, with more voices. I heard my great-grandmother's voice, high and sweet. I heard my great-uncle Samuel's voice, younger, more hesitant. I heard my grandfather's voice, rough and tired. And others. Dozens of others. Men, women, even children. All singing together, their voices weaving in and out of each other in a harmony that was both beautiful and utterly wrong. I wanted to listen. I wanted to stop and let that music wash over me, fill me, take me. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. It promised peace. It promised an end to struggle, to fear, to loneliness. It promised that I would never be alone again. But I kept going. I focused on the rope in my hands, on the cold stones against my back, on the weight of the key in my pocket. I didn't listen. I didn't answer. The singing grew louder, more insistent. It was all around me now, inside me. I could feel it vibrating in my bones, resonating with my heartbeat. And then, beneath the singing, I heard something else. A voice, speaking directly to me. Not singing. Speaking. It was my great-grandmother's voice, but also not hers. It was the thing wearing her skin. It said, "Marcus. Come to me, Marcus. I've waited so long. I've waited 100 years. You're the last one. The final key. Come to me and we'll be together forever. All of us. A family, whole at last." I kept going. My hands were raw from the rope, my arms screaming with fatigue. But I kept going. It said, "You're strong. Stronger than the others. But strength won't save you. Nothing will save you. You're mine, Marcus. You've always been mine. From the moment you were conceived, you were mine. Your blood is my blood. Your voice is my voice. Come to me." I looked down and I saw it. Light. Not my flashlight, which was still pointed upward. A different light. Green and pulsing, like foxfire, like the light I'd seen in my dreams. It was coming from below, growing brighter with every foot I descended. I reached the bottom of the well. My feet splashed into cold water, ankle deep. The walls opened up here, forming a small cavern. And in the center of the cavern, set into the stone floor, was a door. A wooden door, old and rotting, bound with iron bands. And in the door, a keyhole. A keyhole that matched the key in my pocket. The green light was seeping through the cracks around the door, pulsing with the rhythm of the singing. The singing was coming from beyond that door. The choir was on the other side, waiting for me. I pulled the key from my pocket. It was warm now, almost hot, and it seemed to vibrate in my hand. I walked toward the door, the water splashing around my feet, the singing swelling to a crescendo. The voice spoke again, right next to my ear, though no one was there. It said, "Don't do this, Marcus. Don't lock us away. We're your family. We love you. We only want to be with you. Don't you want to be with us?" I thought about my grandfather, standing on that porch every night for 80 years, resisting. I thought about my great-uncle, empty for 90 years, finally choosing to be useful. I thought about all the voices on the other side of that door, all the souls that had been taken, all the grief and longing that had fed this thing for a century. I said, "No. I don't want to be with you. I want you to go back where you came from." I shoved the key into the lock. The screaming started immediately. Not singing now, but screaming. The voices of the choir, all of them, screaming in rage and pain and despair. The door shook, rattling on its iron hinges. The green light flared, blindingly bright, and then began to flicker, to fade. I turned the key. It was hard, so hard, like turning a lock that hadn't been moved in a century. I put all my strength into it, my muscles straining, my teeth gritted. And then, with a click that sounded like a gunshot in the cavern, it turned. The screaming stopped. The green light vanished. The door went still. And I was alone in the darkness, knee-deep in cold water, shaking uncontrollably. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe hours. Eventually, I turned on my flashlight and looked at the door. It was just a door now. Old, rotting, but just a door. The key was still in the lock. I left it there. I didn't want to touch it again. I climbed back up the rope. It was harder going up than down, my arms and legs trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. But I made it. I pulled myself over the edge of the well and collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn was coming. The stillborn hour was over. I lay there for a long time, staring at the stars fading one by one. And then I remembered my great-uncle. I pushed myself up and stumbled toward the house. I found him on the porch, in my grandfather's rocking chair. He was slumped forward, his head resting on his chest. For a moment, I thought he was dead. But then he stirred, lifting his head slowly, painfully. His milky eyes found me, and he smiled. A real smile this time, warm and genuine. He said, "You did it?" I felt it. The silence. For the first time in 90 years, the silence is just silence. No singing. No calling. Just quiet. I sat down on the porch steps, too tired to stand. I said, "What happened to you? Did it try to take you?" He said it tried. It reached for me. But I'm empty, remember? There was nothing to take. It couldn't get a hold. And then, suddenly it was gone. Like a candle snuffed out. You did that, Marcus. You closed the door. We sat there together, the old man and me, watching the sun rise over the Texas plains. For the first time since I'd arrived, the place felt peaceful. Felt like just a ranch, just land, just dirt and sky and nothing more. My great-uncle died 3 days later. Peacefully in his sleep. I like to think he finally let himself feel something, let himself want something, in those last days. Maybe he let himself feel pride in me. Maybe he let himself feel hope that his sacrifice meant something. I don't know. But he died with a smile on his face, and that's more than he'd had in 90 years. I stayed at the ranch for a week after that. I cleaned up the house, packed up my grandfather's things, said goodbye to the place. I went back to the well once, just to look. The door was still there, but it was different now. Just old wood and iron, slowly rotting away. The key was still in the lock. I left it there. Some things should stay locked. I drove back to Dallas and tried to resume my normal life. But I couldn't. I couldn't sit in my high-rise apartment, listening to the city noise, pretending that the world was safe and normal. Because I knew now what lurked in the quiet places. I knew what could come through when grief opened a door. And I knew that my family's bloodline, my bloodline, had been the key to something terrible. So I made a decision. I sold my apartment. I quit my job. And I moved back to the ranch. I live here now, in my grandfather's house. I've fixed it up, made it comfortable. I tend the land, mend the fences, watch the stars at night. And every night, at the stillborn hour, I go out on the porch and I sit in my grandfather's rocking chair. Not because I have to. Not because I'm keeping vigil. But because I choose to. I choose to be present in that hour, to remind myself that the silence is just silence now. That the door is locked. That the thing that haunted my family for 100 years is gone. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind blows just right, I think I hear something. Not singing. Just a whisper, a memory of a whisper. And I wonder if the door is really locked forever. I wonder if something that old, something that patient, can ever truly be destroyed. Or if it's just waiting. Waiting for another crack to appear. Waiting for another stillborn hour when someone's grief opens a door. I don't have the answers. I just have this story. And I'm telling it to you now, through this channel, because I think people need to know. I think people need to understand that the world is stranger and more dangerous than we imagine. That the things we dismiss as legends, as campfire stories, as old wives' tales, sometimes have a kernel of truth. And that the greatest horror isn't always the monster under the bed. Sometimes it's the grief in your own heart, the longing for what you've lost, that opens the door to something that should never, ever be invited in. My name is Marcus. I live in La Mesa, Texas, on a ranch that's been in my family for over 100 years. The song is silent now. The choir is gone. But I still wake at the stillborn hour, every night without fail. And I go out on the porch, and I sit in the dark, and I listen to the silence. Because the silence, I've learned, is a gift. It means nothing is calling. It means the door is still locked. It means, for one more night, we're safe. But safety is fragile. It's temporary. And somewhere out there, in some other lonely place, someone's grief is opening a door. Someone's longing is calling something through. And that thing is singing, waiting, building its own choir. So if you hear singing in the night, between 3 and 4 in the morning, when the world holds its breath, don't listen. Don't answer. Cover your ears and wait for dawn. Because whatever is singing, it's not your mother. It's not your brother. It's not your lost love come back to you. It's something ancient and hungry, and it wants your voice for its choir. It wants to use you as a key. And once that key turns, once that door opens, there's no closing it again. Not without a sacrifice. Not without 100 years of silence. Not without someone brave enough to go down into the darkness and turn the lock. I was that someone. But I won't always be here. And the door, I've learned, is never truly locked forever. So be careful what you listen to in the darkness. Be careful what you long for. Be careful what you grieve. Because the stillborn hour is coming, for all of us. And what answers the call might not be what you expect. It might be your own voice, singing back at you from the other side. Sleep well, my friends. And if you hear singing, for God's sake, don't answer. That's the end of Marcus's story, as he sent it to us just last month. We've tried to contact him since, to ask follow-up questions, to verify details. His phone goes to voicemail. His email bounces back. The ranch in La Mesa, according to public records, was sold at auction 6 months ago to a developer who plans to turn it into a hunting retreat. The new owners report no unusual occurrences, no singing in the night, no ghostly figures at the edge of the woods. Just quiet, peaceful Texas land. But Marcus's final message to us, included with his story, gives me pause. He wrote, "I'm going back to the well one last time. I need to check something. I need to make sure. If you don't hear from me again, tell them I tried. Tell them I did my best. And tell them to remember the stillborn hour. Tell them to listen to the silence. And if the silence ever breaks, if the singing ever starts again, someone else will have to go down into the darkness. Someone else will have to turn the key. We haven't heard from him since. That was 8 months ago. So tonight, as you listen to this story, in your homes in the USA, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, wherever you are, I want you to do something. I want you to set an alarm for 3 in the morning. Just once. Just to see. Just to listen. Wake up at the stillborn hour and pay attention to the silence. Is it just silence? Or is there something else there? A whisper? A memory of a melody? A faint, distant singing, carried on a wind that isn't blowing? If you hear it, don't answer. Don't go toward it. Just lie there, in your bed, and wait for dawn. And then, maybe, send us an email. Tell us what you heard. Tell us where you are. Because if the singing is starting again, if the door is opening somewhere else, we need to know. We need to be ready. Marcus was brave. Marcus was strong. But Marcus might be gone now, another voice in that terrible choir. And if he is, then the door is still open. The gatherer is still waiting. And it's only a matter of time before it finds another key. Thank you for listening to tonight's story on Bella Dark Tales. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story from the dark corners of our world. And comment below. Tell us your thoughts. Have you ever experienced the stillborn hour? Have you ever heard something in the silence that you couldn't explain? We want to hear from you. And if you have a story of your own, something that happened to you or someone you know, send it to us at belladarktales@gmail.com. Your story could be featured on a future episode. Until next time, my friends, listen carefully to the silence. And remember, some doors should never be opened. Some songs should never be answered. Good night, and sleep well. Or try to, at least. The stillborn hour is coming. And it's always listening.